Hello, our dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition of Inside Egypt. I'm Ahisi Rabia. Prime Minister Ibrahim Mahlab wrapped up a three-day visit to Equatorial Guinea, where he delivered a message from President Adli Mansour on fostering bilateral ties. Mahlab reiterated that African leaders signaled a consensus on resuming Egypt's activities at the African Union. The details in the following report.
Equatorial Guinea's President Teodoro Obiang Nguema received a written message from Egypt's interim President Adli Mansour covering the latest developments in the region and bilateral ties. The letter was handed by Egyptian Prime Minister Ibrahim Mahlab, who was visiting Equatorial Guinea. The Egyptian Premier discussed with Equatorial Guinea's leader the latest developments in Egypt and Africa, along with the means to boost relations. Mahlab was heading a high-profile delegation that included ministers of foreign affairs, irrigation, housing, petroleum and health. Equatorial Guinea President Teodoro Obiang Nguema announced that he will invite Egypt's elected president to attend the next African Union summit to be held in his country in June. He pledged to help Egypt's return to the African Union as soon as possible. He also said that Africa has been negatively affected by the suspension of Egypt's activities inside the African bloc. He also added that restoring Egypt's leading role inside the African Union is necessary and inevitable. The president made his comments to the Egyptian journalists accompanying the delegation of Prime Minister Ibrahim Mahlab during his visit. Meanwhile, Mahlab toured the industrial area of Panta, Europe on the second day of his visit. Mahlab probed cooperation potentials between Egypt and Equatorial Guinea in the natural gas and oil fields. He also discussed with officials there the possibility of importing liquefied natural gas from the African country and training its cadres. He pledged to review a draft agreement on oil and mineral resources. Asked by reporters about the strained relations between Egypt and Ethiopia, which houses the EU headquarters, he said that relationship between both African countries is historical and deeply rooted. He expressed pleasure for visiting Equatorial Guinea, thanking the officials there for the warm welcome accorded to him and his accompanying delegation. He said that Egypt must return to its distinguished standing in Africa and the world, and it is determined to do so, most particularly to foster its cooperation with all countries in the continent in all fields and all fronts.
The Ministry of Youth hosted an event under the name How to Elect Your President and What Do You Expect from Him? Secretary General of the Presidential Election Committee, Councillor Abdelaziz Salman, was invited to answer all questions about the electoral process. Abir Mitwali was there and filed in the following report.
Under the auspices of the Ministry of Youth, a session was held entitled How Would You Elect Your President and What Do You Expect from Him? The Ministry of Youth invited the Secretary General Election Committee, Councillor Abdelaziz Salman, as well as a lot of Egyptian youth coming from all the governorates to discuss the coming presidential election. Writer and media person Gamal al-Shair was the master of the ceremony. We are here today to discuss how to choose our new president. Ask Councillor Salman about the transparency in elections, the domestic and international organization monitoring the elections, the vote counting, the appeals on the results, all these details to be discussed. Most of the attendees were youth coming from different arenas to know more about the presidential elections. I came today to ask about the media coverage of the elections. I want to know how the electoral process will be administrated and to be a part of the political life and have a political vision. This session included open discussions on the presidential elections, and also it provided a lot of information to the youth representing different areas all over Egypt to deliver it to their villages and cities. This session tackled the presidential election law, especially the fortifying law. We are discussing the presidential election law. Councillor Salman is here to answer all questions about the coming election, especially the fortifying law. Some opinions are with it and others see that it is not important at all. Councillor Salman revealed further details of the presidential election, including the election monitoring bodies and the voting process outside Egypt. The presidential polls are scheduled to take place on the 26th and 27th of May.
Egyptian youth have various requirements, but will the new president be able to meet their demands? The question yet awaits an answer. This is Abir Mitwali reporting for Nile TV.
The Egyptian government has announced plans to fund public sector restructuring, along with new infrastructure projects through the stock exchange. More details in the following report.
Interim Prime Minister Ibrahim Mahlab said the government plans to improve the management of public funds and their efficiency through its plans to fund the public sector restructuring. Mahlab was speaking at the initial public offering conference organized by Egypt's stock exchange. Mahlab had announced soon after he was appointed late February that privatization was no longer an option. The government plan to revive public sector is based on private sector partnership. The government did not reveal whether it will fix a limit for private ownership in public companies. The government's plan to launch an initial public offering IPO in the stock market is not limited to public sector business, but will include new infrastructure projects as new regulations for companies listed on the stock exchange implemented in February to allow new projects to launch IPOs, while old regulations required companies to present financial statements of 3 years before being listed. Mahlab also said the government would seek funds in the stock market for a massive economic development project targeting the Suez Canal region. Companies were allowed to submit bids for the Suez Canal development project from Thursday. In January, out of 46 applicants, 14 international firms were selected that met tender specifications for the project. The results of the bid to put together a comprehensive plan for the economic development of the Suez Canal will be announced mid-June. Work in infrastructure is planned to start by 2015.
Egypt's Antiquities Ministry said that archaeologists have found a tomb dating back to around 11,000 BC south of Cairo. Antiquities Minister Mohammed Ibrahim said the tomb belongs to a guard of the army, archives and royal messenger to the foreign countries. Ibrahim said that the Cairo University Faculty of Archaeology's discovery at Saqqara adds a chapter to the knowledge about the history of Saqqara. Dina Yunus was there and found in the following report.
Tourist Development Authority (TDA) approved tourism investment projects on the Red Sea coast worth some 3 billion Egyptian pounds, worth of $0.4 billion. Following 50 bids, the TDA offered 5 pieces of land to the winning developers to build 5 tourist projects in Egypt's Ain al-Sukhna and Ras Sidr at